During the filming of the following episode, we experienced some technical challenges with our studio software, and our guests were gracious enough to film with us virtually. Thank you for your patience with any audio or visual differences in this week's episode. Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of ElevateNonprofit.com, an online learning platform for fundraising event professionals. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristen Steele and Samantha Swaim.
Well, welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. We are very excited today. We are here with two very special guests to talk about a new project that they've been working on, a new auction platform. But before we dive into auction platforms, we would be remiss without tapping into their expertise about organizational development, about what's happening in the nonprofit sector. So Seth Godin, Anne Marie, Cruz, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
It's a pleasure. There's a lot of people in this elevator, but we're going to make it work.
We are. Well, Kristen, I'm going to pass it to you so you can do an official introduction of our guests.
Awesome. Anne Marie Cruz is a consultant, writer, editor, and artist. She's a founding member of GOODBIDS. She has helped founder Seth Godin shape the version 1 spec of the software while developing partnerships with nonprofits, fundraising consultants, and auction item donors to accelerate their missions to better the world. Seth Godin is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, speaker, and most of all, a teacher. In addition to launching one of the most popular blogs in the world, he's written 21 best-selling books. His book, This Is Marketing, was an instant bestseller in countries around the world. His latest books are The Song of Significance and The Practice, and creatives everywhere have made them bestsellers. Anne Marie and Seth are here today to talk to us about their amazing new project, GOODBIDS. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seth, before we share the news about GOODBIDS, I would love some of your insights into the nonprofit sector. We've seen a lot of change and disruption in the sector as a result of the pandemic. There's been a lot of burnout and folks departing the sector, which has actually made room for a lot of new folks entering the sector, specifically in fundraising. And some of those folks have never fundraised before. And so what would be your advice and what are your observations about the nonprofit sector at this time of change?
So I grew up with the nonprofit sector. Both of my parents were in it, sometimes as volunteers, sometimes as professionals. And it's just amazing to me that people don't burn out more often because of a couple myths that are associated with it. The first myth is that you need to be personal and vulnerable, and thus a rejection is a rejection of you, which is not the case. Everybody who donates to a nonprofit is doing it because the amount of money they're donating is worth less than the way it makes it feel to give that donation. That it's actually a bargain if somebody donates, and that what we show up when we're raising money is we are offering people a chance to have that feeling. If they don't want that feeling, that's not your issue. And once we can professionalize this approach, not do dialing for dollars, not spam people, but professionalize the idea that we are here to open the door for people to get that extraordinary feeling of helping, then you can play at a whole other level. And I'm thrilled when new people enter the field, and I'm hopeful they will give themselves some grace and realize that the work they're doing is important, but it's not personal.
I really relate to that. I was talking to an organization the other day who was struggling with some fear around asking and some fear around how we talk about money and expectations around money. And I mentioned to them, I am not a mental health expert. I don't know how to take care of the youth you take care of, but giving is my way of doing that. When you ask me to give, it's a, like you said, low dollar way, low impact way for me that feels good, that feels exciting, but also creates an impact in the world I want to see and helps to manifest the things I want to support. So I appreciate that. Anne Marie, you have worked in the nonprofit sector too. Where do you see sort of the nonprofit world right now? You've been doing so much work with your partners, and I'm curious to ask you, what do you think is going well? What do you think is going right in the nonprofit sector?
Well, it's interesting because one of the things that Seth talks about, which I'd love to sort of segue to him after my response, is that nonprofits should be in the business of making room for innovation within their missions and also their fundraising. So a lot of the nonprofit launch partners that we're working with on our new project have space in their mission and their fundraising for that innovation. One of the favorite things that I heard from Ettore Rossetti of Save the Children, and I will carry this with me forever, is that he said after they confirmed that they were going to work with us, is they were treating it, the whole team was treating it as if it was a boots on the ground humanitarian crisis, except the crisis was innovation. And so they wanted to rally as much as they would for something terrible that happened, but it's a positive development.
I love that. Seth, what do you think is going right in the nonprofit sector?
Well, I hadn't heard that story. I love that riff from Ettore. So many things are going right. If it were up to me, if I were king of the world, nonprofits wouldn't have to do any fundraising at all.
Yeah.
We are a community, and community action makes things better. And we have built this weird backward system where nonprofits have to feel like supplicants. But the thing is, most nonprofits are working on problems we don't know the answer to, because if we knew the answer, we would have solved them already. So what it means to do that is you are in a laboratory. You are on the frontier. Your job is to fail on the way to succeeding and to publish your work, to share with others what didn't work so they won't make the same mistake.
Yes.
And when we think about fundraising, I know how fundraising worked in 1925. One rich person called 8 other rich people, and then you were done. And I know how it worked in the 50s and the 60s with direct mail solicitation and everything else. It's going to keep changing. This is a weird world we live in, and it's as normal as it is ever going to be again. And so we're dancing on the edge of possibility here, and we can do that with lightness to say, this might not work, but if it works for the donor and it works for us and it works for the people we serve, we're glad we did it.
I'm going to piggyback off that, if that's okay.
Please.
Before we hopped on this, whatever this is, the Riverside, Seth was talking about an event that he went to, and it's similar to one that resonated with me 2 years ago. It's not a new concept at all, but it's a friend-raisers where people are asking, the board members and staff from the nonprofit ask friends and friends of friends, like, bring your friends too. So I got invited to a board member's house, and yes, there were catered snacks, but it certainly wasn't the kind of lift that a gala requires. And you could tell just by the way that the staffers' their shoulders weren't up to their ears running around with stress. They were very chill, and it was all about kind of like face-to-face conversations it was for Pacific Forest Trust. So it was about stewarding existing forests and the way that helps with the fight against climate change. And in the interim 2 years, they're always at the top of my list for who I'm going to donate to. If I'm stressing out about climate change, press the button. It's because they made me, as you often talk about, they made me feel seen and they made me feel empowered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those, and also they weren't running around with their hair on fire and could be in relationship, right? When we talk about all these pieces, it's like, how do we eliminate the barriers of fundraising to make it that is actually an exchange between humans and a conversation where people lean in and your mission and my mission get to collaborate together. Yeah. Seth, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about where you think there are untapped opportunities in the nonprofit sector, which I know some of our listeners are going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't do more. I can't think about innovation. But where do you think that if they do have time and resource, instead of putting it over here, where's a direction they could head to create more impact?
Okay, so I'm going to limit my focus to fundraising because everything else is so important, but sort of off the topic. When it comes to fundraising, many people who do this just want a manual. They want the step-by-step procedure. They want to dial for dollars. And they end up in a race to the bottom. So I got an email from a library that I had supported years ago. And the email was disguised like my library card had been canceled. And the language was straight out of the bad copywriting textbook. And it was somehow going to trick me to get from that to, oh, here's some money for the that is the inevitable result of turning the crank too many times. And the opportunity instead is to say, how do I invite people along on this journey? not because they like my haircut or because I'm particularly charismatic, but because it's about them. That donors donate when they see themselves in something, how they're going to tell their friends, what are they going to tell their family? Does it raise their status or their affiliation? Well, look at how all the other things you interact with online have changed since the birth of Amazon, right? That they have changed dramatically. Why is nonprofit fundraising stuck in where it was? That doesn't make any sense, except for the fact that we're too busy being busy to take the time to find the strategy that makes us effective. I don't think fundraisers need to work more hours. I think they need to work fewer hours, but they need to do things that scare them on behalf of the people they're here to serve, which are donors who are looking for a feeling.
We just had an episode with Rachel Bearbauer, who works with small organizations about automation. And I see that organizations that are leaning into simple solutions, technology solutions, AI solutions, are able to do the thing that they should be doing, which is invest in the energy of relationship and connection and people. And, I think that sometimes that's a scary concept of we have to lean onto technology in order to have a relationship with people, but it's a way of streamlining our workload. What role do you think the donor has in that? How do they influence decisions of an organization's impact or the organization's willingness and fearlessness in technology and innovation?
Well, Anne Marie has heard me talk about this before, so I'm going to let her go first, and then I'll add whatever she has in mind.
I'm actually going to meld the previous question and this question because I think they're related, and especially what Seth was talking about. There's this sense of a missing opportunity with collaborating with fundraising. Now, Floyd Jones of Give Butter is doing something very similar with Back Black movement, where he's gathering a whole bunch of interested donor eyeballs. We know that donors want to back Black-led groups, Black-led businesses. And so there's this sort of sense of, oh, the donor dollars are scarce, so we're competing with the nonprofit down the street, so we can't team up with them. But what if that's not true? What if it's, what if there are other versions of what Floyd is doing for nonprofits that do similar work or are adjacent in an adjacent space? I just think that there might be an opportunity there for sort of group fundraising. It's like that old adage, it's like the online fundraising adage of if you want to open up a light bulb store, open it up on the street with all the other light bulb stores, so.
Yeah. When you pick your donors, you pick your future. And if people are going to get one thing from the first half of this podcast, it's super simple. If you pick donors who demand that you put on a song and dance, who demand the emergency of the day, who demand that you come and kiss their ring, who demand all of these things, that's your future. You're allowed to say to those donors, I'm sorry, we're not for you. Here's the phone number of someone else you can call. When you pick donors who say, I want to give to the general fund, I am happy to pay for overhead. When you pick donors who say, I am here to go on this journey with you, and I'm not going to keep shopping around for the emergency of the day, then you get to do a different kind of work. That doesn't mean those donors are easy to find. They're hard to find. But when you find one, you need to treat them differently than the donor who on December 30th sends you $100. Because if that's that donor has told you who they are,
right? And
if you go chase them, that's who you're going to get.
Yeah, I think that the number of organizations that we work with that have one donor who informs so much of their impact in often in a negative way, right? They're not giving their funds and saying, I believe in what you're doing, go use it the way it's going to create most impact. They're giving their funds and asking for a lot in return. And then that totally transforms what the rest of the team is able to do, where they can spend their time, where their energy goes. So before we move into talking about the platform, because I'm really excited about this new platform, I did just want to mention Song of Significance. I think that right now, your publication, Songs of Significance, is just such an important, salient piece for organizations to think about their own organizational structure, what's working, what's not working in the work environment. we're in a Zoom-like sort of online platform right now having a conversation. But I think a lot of what we've witnessed in the nonprofit sector, especially with donor relationships and with staff, has been that we've detached a little bit from relationships, because while this technology has a lot of capabilities, it also has some limitations. What do you think the solution is right now around the fact that we're living in a Zoom world and yet still experiencing disconnection from each other? And sometimes that creates some isolation or some sort of individual silos and not as much collaboration.
I wouldn't have been able to write the book if it weren't for Anne Marie and the other people I worked with on the Carbon Almanac. And I'm going to let Anne Marie explain page 19 thinking, and then I'll follow up with where I think it answers your question. But I got to give credit where credit is due. Page 19 was absolutely brilliant thinking. So over to you, Anne Marie.
Oh, thank you. Well, page 19 was something that started with something that Seth said, because it was 200 volunteers from like 70 or 90 different countries all over the world working asynchronously to deliver a manuscript on climate change in an almanac to Penguin Random House. And we had like 4 months to do it. What Seth said was, okay, it's very daunting, especially for a bunch of lay people, to stare at blank screens and say, great, I'm going to make an almanac now. So he said, let's just say any random page, page 19 is the page number he picked. None of us feels equipped or authorized to write it, which is exactly why we needed each of us to feel authorized. And just at least make a stab. If you put one sentence down on the paper, hand it off to someone else, you can trust that someone else is going to be able to improve it, add another layer. Not that you have to be right out of the gate the expert. Just trust that like your lived experience and your skill set can bring to the table what needs to be brought. And so in this, and all of it was done in rooms like this. Either I was working on my computer, and then sometimes we'd get on meetings. And some of the meetings we had, because what that sort of thinking engenders is there's no gatekeepers. If you see something that needs to be led, you hop right in there. And when you discover that the scary thing that you didn't know you could lead is actually fun to do, or you have support and cheerleaders on the sideline, then you want to do more and you want to do more. And we had people saying when they would watch recordings of meetings, small team meetings, they'd be like, I'm so delighted. How am I delighted from watching a recording of a Zoom meeting? And this is all, the groundwork for that was set by Seth, saying that piece that he said, and then also allowing it to not be a space where people had to, dance and sing for, I want to be an editor on this. No, you want to try it? Go ahead.
So there's this false feeling of control. And if your nonprofit has a big building, if there are receptionists who guard the entrance, if the gala is scheduled down to the last minute, that's because we want control, and control feels safe. And when we get this close to the coalface, that we're talking directly, instantly to somebody across the world, it's easy to feel like we are out of control. So we try to add layers of disinterest or plexiglass between us so that we can get back to feeling like we're in control. But actual control comes from dancing together. That actual control comes from saying, I see you, I hear you, let's figure out how to do this together, even though neither one of us is sure of what's going to happen. Because if you want to be an industrialized, by the book nonprofit, you need to go find a time machine and go back to 1964, because all that's left for the rest of us is the dance.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, with that, we'll take a dance break so that we can hear from a few of our supporters, and we'll be right back to talk about GOODBIDS.
The Fundraising Elevator is recorded at the AV department in Portland, Oregon. For years, they've been our trusted partner, delivering exceptional audio-visual production and videography for nonprofits. In 2020, they transformed into a dynamic live streaming studio, producing more than 900 virtual and hybrid events. Now, we embark on an exciting journey together to bring you this podcast. Seeking the best in live events, video production, and live streaming? We proudly recommend our friends at the AV department. Link in the episode description.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. We are so lucky to be here today with the always brilliant Anne Marie Cruz and Seth Godin. They're here today to talk to us about their new platform, GOODBIDS. So let's jump in. What is this new platform, Seth?
Well, one of the truest things I ever said is elevator pitches don't work because no one ever bought anything on an elevator pitch. What you really want is an elevator question. And Anne Marie and I are not here to pitch GOODBIDS, but we are here with some interesting questions. And one of the questions is, what if we could get rid of charity auctions or actually make them work a lot better? That galas have all this overhead and auctions have this disconnect because the bidders want to spend as little as possible and the charities want to make as much as possible. It doesn't really work. So I came up with this idea that I call a positive auction. And the dynamics of it could only work on the internet, but they do work, and we've tested it. And now we're launching this first with a handful of charities and then hopefully in wider release. And the idea is simple. The auction, we're auctioning off cool things like a Bob Dylan tour jacket or a Apollo 11 shoulder patch from Neil Armstrong. And the bidding starts at $10 and goes up in $10 increments. But you can't skip a step, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And the big and, every bid is actually a non-refundable donation. So it doesn't matter whether you get the reward or not at the end, you have made a donation. The last donor gets the reward. The math of this is fascinating. It means that if an auction goes for $240, the charity gets $2,400. And if an auction goes for $900, the charity gets about $100,000. And so there's going to be this huge gap between what something is bid at and what it's actually worth. And that unstable equilibrium captures people's attention. And the reason we think this is interesting for nonprofits is you have supporters, you have people in your network who will benefit from offering a really unique, thoughtful reward, like lunch with Warren Buffett, which went for $19 million last year. And then you have supporters who, yeah, I'll put in $50, $70, $100 to see if I have a shot at that. If it turns out to spread, it could be a really generative tool for nonprofits. We don't charge the nonprofits anything until after the auction is over, and then we charge them 10% of what they raise.
Anne Marie, I'm going to let you jump in on the platform. But the thing that's really interesting to me about this is that the auction culture has been a way to give, but also to receive, where this is an environment where it's not necessarily about just being the winner. It's about participating in collective action. And collective action is such a motivator for giving and for just like why people participate. So it's interesting to think about this isn't just a competitive nature where in the end, what we're yielding is a prize and one winner. It's sort of a collective action where everyone is participating in still the fundraising aspect, not just in the prize win. So it's an interesting model. We've been in fundraising auctions for 20 years. We've done live auctions, online auctions, silent auctions, and they all have their pluses and negatives, right? The negative often is that only such a small margin of people can participate. And meaning like, I think the live auction only has one winner, where here in this particular situation, you're asking everyone to participate and it creates a sort of powerful collective action. So you've done some tests. You've started to understand a little bit about how the audience engages with this platform. What are you learning about that, Anne Marie? Who are you partnering with in these testing models?
Wow, this is a big series of questions, so I will try to tackle them one at a time. One thing that I think is interesting, because you were talking about it's a collective action. It's actually even more collective because if every bid is a paid donation in full, then Seth has created an asset out of what is a free bid, which is what normal auctions usually create, because you're not on the hook for the money. So right. We incentivize people who are supporters of these nonprofits to share their customized or their individualized referral link, And now you're bringing in your friends, and now you're bringing in the network of networks. You've got the nonprofit and the supporters, and then you get to tap into each of the supporters' networks to pass this, the links along for the nonprofit auctions. And then the other piece of it is, you were saying, the nonprofit part. Sorry, go ahead. No, please.
No, I was just going to prompt you. The nonprofits we're working with.
Yeah. And I think this is a very instructive list, because we have 9 confirmed nonprofit launch partners, and they range from the sort of household brand names of Charity Water, Innocence Project, Save the Children, Build On, and then sort of the more mid-range ones like Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, and then smaller, scrappier ones that are new to, they probably were just created in the last couple of years, like Walk Good LA, Million Meal Project, and then we also have Grateful Guitars. And so just from that list alone, you can see that it's not about size and it's not about staffing. It's really about nonprofits who heard, we're getting an opportunity to experiment. And it's such a low risk because we're not charged up front. There's no subscription model or whatever. It's just, if you do get bids, which are donations to you, then we invoice you after the auction ends, and it's at 10% of the total auction gross. So they saw the opportunity, and then we're helping them communicate that opportunity to their supporters. This is a chance to take not just any old collective action, but an experimental collective action where we get to try something new. We get to kind of break new ground. And it's like, will you help us do this? It might not be for everyone, because not everybody wants to go first. But this round is all about, and I know this podcast episode will air after the test has already happened, but in this part of our cycle, we're here to delight the people who want to go first and want to test stuff.
And, my mom, who used to, she was on the board of trustees of the Albright Knox Museum in Buffalo and did a lot of innovative stuff in her work there. And I learned an important lesson from her, which is, if no one shows up, no one knows no one showed up. And so this entire, we're a little tiny team, and this might not work. And if it doesn't work, then we'll move on. But if it does work, the people who show up will see that other people showed up, and we're off to the races. So the idea is, some nonprofits have said, we're not the kind of nonprofit that likes to go first. And we've said, good for you for having that insight, right? That you should and can wait a month, 3 months, 6 months. But if you're the kind that likes to go first, then we're going first, and you can dance with us. And that model is exactly what I was talking about with how you talk to your donors. We don't want a partner that needs 400 pages of terms and conditions, because we're not at that stage yet. What we are doing is exploring how to engage with people to give them something that might light them up. And we built a simple page at joinus.goodbids.org. And so if anyone wants to go there, they can submit their name and contact information, and Anne Marie and someone from her team will reach out to you about what we're up to. But again, the launch is going to happen shortly before this podcast. And our hope is that the idea will spread, because ideas that spread are the ones that win.
I love the lesson in the willingness to try. And I'm going to now just tell folks, well, Seth Godin's mom always says that if no one shows up, no one knows no one showed up. Because I think that the fear that gets in front of us oftentimes stops innovation. But I love that you're in a space where not only are you creating something for the nonprofit sector, but also challenging the nonprofit sector to innovate and to, step into the unknown a little bit, which is brilliant. I love it.
Well, and I think the punchline being that, organizations who are risk averse, I think by virtue of being a 501c3, you are in a risky place where sort of your future is determined by so many things out of your control. So I just ask folks to kind of think of their bigger frame that they sit into. I think sometimes that new thing that pops up sort of becomes, oh my gosh, I don't know, I can't. And yet when we sort of scale back and look at where we actually sit, it's precarious sometimes at best as well.
And again, we should give ourselves some grace. So I started one of the first internet companies, and we had one big office. There were 50 of us. And every 3 months, I would make everyone move where they sat. And the reason is, it turns out that's one of the 5 most stressful things that happens to people at work. is having to sit in a new place in the office. And I figured if I get people used to that, they could get used to all the other craziness we were going through. But even moving where your desk is, even at a startup, is hard. So yeah, it's hard to be on the frontier, but that's why it's worth doing.
Yeah, exactly. What sort of prizes do you think are going to do best in this format? The $1 million
I have
question.
opinions. I'm not sure that Seth and I think we have different opinions on this, so I'm curious.
Perfect.
Should I go first?
Sure, love it.
All right, well, the number one, which I think Seth will agree with, is that it can't be some tie-dye t-shirts that somebody's mom decided to make on a Saturday. We've all been to those auctions.
Totally.
No, we really are trying to train the nonprofits that it needs to be something that's in demand or scarce or once in a lifetime. So my take, and I'm curious to see if I hope that it's a sort of yes and. I think some of the stuff that will do really well is the stuff that the bidding audience will value, luxury items that they'll value at like high 3 figures, 4 figures, where they can game it out that they can bid once big or they can bid multiple times, but they won't spend more than a couple $100. For instance, with our beta test with Build On, it was an Apple Watch Ultra in the form of a $799 Apple Store gift card. The high bid, which won the item, was $230. Now, this is an $800 thing. But because every single bid, win or lose, was a full donation with some free bids sprinkled in there because of people bidding early, Build On raised $2,580. So, even if, say, a small nonprofit had to pay the $800 up front to get the gift card, and even with, our 10% after the auction gross, that's still like a fat $1,500 that didn't exist, and so for one staffer to spend half an hour or less than that putting up an auction, and then there's no shipping, you just send, here you go, winning bidder, here's the digital code. We think that there will be impetus to have someone start doing that as part of their regular duties.
So I'm a fan of the practical luxury good, but I have in my heart a dream that it's either going to be the John Grisham Prize, which is your name in John Grisham's next novel as a minor character, or the Bobby Weir signed Grateful Dead guitar. I think that, when you find people who see themselves in a hobby, who have an otaku about something like that, and they know that they're never, ever going to own a guitar like this unless they engage in this auction, and there's micro communities where they can go tell their friends. In my dreams, I'm hoping that will go for $3,000. And if it does, then the charity is going to get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars as a result. So that's what I'm thinking. But Anne Marie is right. Things like, suites at the Ritz-Carlton or Apple Watches, we can auction those things off all day long if people want to bid for them.
Well, there's an overlap on what you're talking about, though. You're talking about prizes, regardless of like luxury item or experience, or even just like uniqueness, like an Apollo patch or an autographed guitar. You're talking about items that you can't just walk into a store and buy as easily as, for the dollar amount you're spending, as easily as you can in the winning bid. But you framed up, Anne Marie, a dollar amount that I want to make sure that you break down and explain a little bit, because this is the concept of positive bids. It's not what nonprofits are used to. You identified that the winning bidder spent $230, but the organization grossed $2,500. Can you just walk us through how do you bring a donor along on that journey to help them understand what a positive bid is?
Oh, yeah, of course, absolutely. So I actually don't know what the winning bidder's overall donation total was. That was just the last bid. But the way it worked was we started at $10. So whoever placed the first bid, there was a little payment screen that said, bid $10. This is a $10 donation directly to Build On. Then once that bid is placed, the bid button says bid $20 because it's mandatory $10 increments. So bidder one's not bidding against themselves. So some second bidder comes in and presses bid $20, and it says you are donating $20 in full directly to Build On. We don't touch any of the money. It's through Stripe. So the nonprofits get it directly, and so on. So the next bidder, whether it's bidder 1 or bidder 3, comes in and bids 30. And as you add those up, even just those first 3 bids, suddenly it's $60, 10 plus 20 plus 30, even though the top bid is 30. As you keep tacking on the bids going up to 230, it's actually would be, if all the bids were not, if all the bids are full bids and full donations to the charity, it's actually more than 2,600, but there were a couple free bids in there. If you total it all up, that's how you get to the $2,580.
And it sounds like from the user experience, the person who's clicking the button and bidding, you're giving them the notice at the time, this is a direct donation to the organization. So every time they take an action, they're getting educated along the way.
Every single interaction we have avoided the shortcut of pretending we're running a store or pretending it's an auction. It's not. And so our slogan is every bid is a donation. And when you make a donation, it says a donation, a non-refundable. We do not want people to be confused. It's the opposite of that. So my take is that the first 3 or 4 or 5 bids are going to be from supporters of the charity who know they're not going to get a prize, who just say, oh, I was going to give $40 anyway. Here we go, $40. Then in the middle, there's going to be this moment of you're not sure if it's the middle or the end. So some people are going to use up one of their free bids, which costs the charity nothing. It just makes the auction more expensive for other people. And some people are going to show up. They missed the first 3 bids, so they got to get in now. Mm-hmm. And other people are going to think, wow, this thing's about to end. I better go. And this unstable equilibrium, this is the magic. This is what happens if you're at a horse race and there's only 6 seconds left. You're not sure who's going to win. And we've structured it with anti-sniping. So the auction is scheduled to end at 3 o'clock. But if someone bids at 2:45, we extend the auction. So there's no way to swoop in at the end and beat somebody out because you have a faster internet connection than they have.
I love that. Well, it speaks to me about, if you've ever seen Derek Sievert's TED Talk about how to build a movement in 3 minutes or less, it speaks to me about that groupthink concept of you have that sort of initial brave person that begins, and then you have the first follower and the second follower until you start to build enough momentum that it actually is riskier to sit on the outside and wait than it is to jump in and participate. So you're creating that environment that sort of brings in, speaks to the early adopter, brings people in, and then all of a sudden creates that momentum where everyone wants to be a part of it.
So thank you for bringing up Derek's name. I will tell him that you saw the talk. Derek posted that thing before he gave his TED Talk. He posted that video within 10 minutes of me posting the same video on my blog, and we both did it randomly. We did not know each other. We didn't read each other's blogs. It just happened simultaneity. And we were sitting at TED and he asked me if I was okay with him doing a TED Talk about it. I was like, of course, go for it, because it's not like it was my idea. And he did such a beautiful job of explaining it. So if you go to my blog and type guy number 3, you can see the video that you're talking about, which can then links to Derek's TED Talk. There's a lot to learn from that. I think of guy number 3 all the time.
So do we. We use that in everything we do in fundraising groups. Like whenever we have people gathered, our world is specifically gathering people for fundraising. And we are always looking at who's our number 1, our number 2, and our number 3. And we are always designing toward that because there's a lot to learn in just watching how that group dynamic plays out. I love that.
I think we've been sort of lacing this throughout, but I'm wondering if you can sort of specifically talk about how GOODBIDS will help nonprofits do more with less. I think that's where everybody's ears perk up, right?
Anne Marie, you want to jump in? I have a riff. If I'll go first.
Yeah, you can go first, and then I'll just tack on. Yeah.
So, I invented email marketing in 1990, and I did not think at the time that I was going to help nonprofits do more with less. But it's pretty clear that the fact that you can email 4,000 people who want to hear from you for free at 4 o'clock and hear back from some of them at 4:15, gives you the ability to do more or less. Now you take it for granted. You think that that's normal and free and obvious, but it wasn't in 1990. And what do nonprofits do when they fundraise? What they do is they sell a feeling to people. And unfortunately, we have come up with some very enervating, scary, expensive, time-consuming ways to sell that feeling to people. Naming a building after them, having a gala, struggling to get a meeting with people, feeling like we have to shame them, buy this magazine or we'll shoot this dog. And what I think we need to do is get to the heart of why we're doing this in the first place, right? And I learned a long time ago, you don't want to give the person you're dating a gift certificate for Valentine's Day. They don't like that. That the effort you put in to going out to buying the flowers was better than handing them a flowers gift certificate. Well, what is the heart of this? Is it fun? Did I have something I could tell other people? Did this make me feel good? If we can do that more efficiently at scale, everybody comes out ahead.
Yeah, I don't think you missed anything that I would have said. It's just, I guess we could say the sort of short version, which is you don't need to do a gala to use this. Not to say we're not trying to supplant galas. This, as we've been saying to people, it's a new tool for your toolbox. But I think if it goes the way that we have, the original tests showed, then it would probably be one of the ones that you go to the most, because burnout is real. And if you don't have to pull people away from what they are good at and why they came to work with you in the first place, to kind of event plan these things and just make it super easy to kind of make involve donors in something that's fun and also raises lots of money at the same time, I think that, that could be so useful.
Well, before we take a quick break, I have one question about the format of GoodBids, which is, we're used to, I think a lot of platforms have launched to online auctions where it's like a catalog. It's almost like shopping Amazon. When you're launching a GoodBids auction, are you launching one item at a time, or are you launching multiple items with multiple opportunities to participate?
So the word launch is really an important thing to understand just in general in the world of the internet. If something is for sale on Amazon and you don't know it, is it actually for sale on Amazon?
Right.
The answer is no. It's not the same as it being on a shelf at Walmart that you have to see on your way to the checkout. So launch is an interesting concept. We aren't seeking to build eBay. We're not seeking to say, this is a good place to come shop. What we're saying is each one of our nonprofits is going to have their own page listing their own auctions, and they will fill those auctions with the early bidders. That's their job. We're not going to be able to do that for you. You have people who, if you say, hey, we know that everyone at the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation is into space, we're telling you we got the Neil Armstrong patch. Well, those are the best people to go bid on it, right? Then they may tell their friends. Then some of our existing bidders from other auctions may come and check it out. So just like you don't launch, in quotation marks, all your email updates at once, you don't need to launch all your auctions at once. On the other hand, if organizationally that's the way your team thinks, Tuesday is the big day, then do it that way. It's not our decision, it's your decision.
I love that. It is a mix of organization think. It is a mix of our sort of previous types of fundraising, like peer-to-peer combined with bidding, combined with direct donation. We're really excited about when this comes out. We're really excited for nonprofits to be able to have access to this. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and ask you to join us on the Fundraising Elevator. So we'll be right back.
Loving the Fundraising Elevator, but wondering how you can talk to Sam and Kristen? Well, now's your chance to do it. Book one-on-one consulting time with Swain Strategies experts Sam, Kristen, and Mary, and get all your event questions answered. Our team has you covered on strategic planning, fundraising strategy, storytelling, data tools, and registration support. Get the tools and the help you need to make the most impact at your fundraising event. Book at elevatenonprofit.com. The link is also in our show notes.
All right, we're back with Seth and Anne Marie talking about GOODBIDS, and I wanted to ask just a couple more questions for those who are interested in learning more, diving in, joining you all in the sort of brave new frontier of experimentation and innovation. I wanted to ask, who is the target audience for you all? What size or kind of organization do you think this platform is best for?
Can I jump
This
in?
is all Anne Marie. You go, Anne Marie.
I think I already sort of referenced it before. There's not a particular size and there's not a particular demographic. I will just, I want to point out, it's not exactly a platform and it's not open. It's currently invite only. We are supporting nonprofits that are doing the work to solve the problems that the world needs solved and are inclusive in doing that work. So that's who is coming on board with us now. And then we have a long list of sort of people waiting to see, they're going to keep their eyeballs on the counters and figure out, oh, is this going to be for us? There's definitely ones that they just need that push to see what the numbers are from the people who start off with us. So yeah, I don't think it's about a type. We are definitely wanting to get all kind of social impact verticals involved. And it's really about whether or not you want to tell your supporters, hey, we're trying this new thing.
I think there's a big difference between psychographics and demographics. Mm-hmm. If I was running a nonprofit, somebody's bank account size isn't nearly as important as their attitude if I'm looking for a donor. It's hard for me to imagine that there are many nonprofits who choose to listen to this podcast that aren't innovative and interested in changing things up. There are other nonprofits have decided not to be innovative. I think that's fine too. But that psychographic, that decision, that informs how people behave.
Yeah. So I want to tee this up to be perhaps the portion of the podcast that our fearless fundraisers can hit pause, take into their stakeholders, big decision makers, when they come in and want to be innovative and sort of lead the charge on GOODBIDS. What donor demographic do you think this will have impact for and move the needle for and will engage for organizations?
Well, I worked with Jacqueline Novogratz on her books, and the first one, The Blue Sweater, is one that chokes me up every time I think about it. What kind of impact are you going to have as the head of a nonprofit writing a book about how you came to do this? And 8 weeks after the book came out, she called me up and she said, I just got a check in the mail for $100,000 from someone I've never met before. That's enough reason to write a book right there, right?
Right there.
You don't write a book because one stranger is going to send you a check for $100,000, but you don't know. And the goal in so much of the lightweight marketing innovation I try to do is to say, it might be emotionally challenging for you to try something new, but it is not organizationally demanding. That beginning when I taught the people at Eddie Bauer how to do email marketing, I said, look, don't hire a senior vice president of email marketing. There's 10 people in the room. Have each person email 10 of your customers and see if they can sell them a pair of khakis. You can get this done in an afternoon. See what you learn. Try it out. Some people aren't up for that, but some people are.
Brilliant. I now think every nonprofit leader needs to think about writing a book. I was listening to one of your past podcasts recently, Seth, about the value of the exercise of writing a book, the value of putting your thoughts down on paper, and appreciate the inspiration, because I do think a lot of our nonprofit leaders are doing such important work, working in so many important communities, and bring, a view of the world that we don't see all the time or know of all the time if we're not living in that experience. So I'm going to invite you both to join us on the Fundraising Elevator. The Fundraising Elevator is named the Fundraising Elevator because we believe that together, when we're collaborating, we can all be heading up together. So we focus a lot of our work on gathering people and how gathering people can really move missions, build momentum. And we have a question we ask of all of our guests, which is, if you step into the elevator and head up to the party at the penthouse, can you share with us a gathering that you went to that was memorable and what made it memorable for you? Anne Marie, let's start with you.
Okay, I feel so terrible that this is the memorable party because it flies in the face of everything that we've been talking about. But you said penthouse, and this is where my brain went. But I'm just going to preface it that way. Please don't feel any pressure to match this, anybody who's listening. But it was when I was at People magazine, and this Russian bajillionaire decided that it was time for him to have a vanity vodka. And so, of course, he rented out all of Liberty Island. And we all got ferried over on, whatever private rental ferries. We get there, there's 3 separate bars made entirely of ice. Obviously, the most gorgeous human beings you've ever seen, handing out beverages and champagne. The bottom half of the Statue of Liberty was open, free for all. Everybody could just run up and down and, explore. And then probably about 90 minutes into that, they motioned us to walk around the other side of the island, where hanging from every single tree was a colorfully lit paper lantern, lighting up these embroidered square carpets that could sit 4 or 5 people, with a black lacquer tray of goodies, a banquet that included deconstructed beef stroganoff. The dessert course comes. Okay, I'm sorry. I know what's going on. The dessert course comes, and suddenly classical music and fireworks by the Grucci family, which they're the ones responsible for every year, the July 4th. The last fireworks explode. We think it's over, but no. Coming slowly around the corner, around the bend of the island on a barge, Duran Duran.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Surprise and delight.
I'm curious about the lasting impact for you. Now, are you a forever lifelong buyer?
I gotta tell you, that was $2 million, and I don't remember. And I don't drink, but I don't. So it wasn't because I got so drunk I can't remember. I just don't remember. So maybe that's instructive. Maybe that's completely instructive.
Love it.
Absolutely. Seth, how about you?
Duran Duran, a band so nice they named it twice. Okay. Mine, I hate parties. I can't even tell you how much I hate parties. But you asked. So my dad in the 70s brought over more refuseniks from the Soviet Union than anybody else in Buffalo.
Wow.
To work at his little hospital crib company. And Thanksgiving at our house was always an open house for people who didn't have any place else to go. And when I was 15 or so, we had 30 Russian immigrants at our house, smoking like chimneys, even the kids, smoking as much as they possibly could. And I'll never forget that feeling in that house. It's like, people like us, we do things like this. This isn't necessarily the Thanksgiving you anticipated or the one that you dreamed of from Norman Rockwell, but this is the Thanksgiving we're able to offer to other people. And if all of the parties I went to were like that one, then I would probably go to more parties.
Beautiful. I love that. Such juxtaposition for you both, the idea of the spectacle versus the connection, right? And honestly, I think there is a lesson in there, because I think when a lot of organizations are working on their gala, the spectacle becomes the conversation, but it's the connection that lasts and sticks with folks. So thank you for sharing your 2 stories. If we head down in the elevator to the basement where the tool chest is, what is a tool, Anne Marie, that you think every fundraiser should have in their toolbox?
I'm going to cheat and give you 2, and I'm going to circle back to what you said in the beginning about how there's new people coming into fundraising, and pandemic has changed, who is doing this work. I bet you that there's a bunch of people like me who are not natural fundraisers or natural, like, oh, I feel so comfortable talking to new people. I mean, I get energy out of it, but there's sort of a cost to it. Set failure goals, because that way, when somebody says no, it's actually something you did right. And in the process of saying, hey, maybe I should get 25 no's in June. If I get those 25 no's, I can pretty much guarantee that I've got a long list of people who are maybes. Let's continue the conversation. At least 1 or 2, possibly more yeses. And then I'm not feeling like those no's were like a stab to the heart of like, oh, I'm just so terrible at this. I should just go hide. They should just fire me now.
Okay, mine is more metaphorical.
Perfect.
I think that great nonprofits have enormous empathy for the people they serve. They understand if you are, the lighthouse that blind person can't see, and you can't put up signs insisting that they do because they can't. But fundraisers sometimes fail to embrace the fact that the key to fundraising is empathy, not for the people you serve, but for your donors, because you're serving them as well.
Yes.
And when someone says, I'm not donating, it simply means that they don't see what you see. They don't want what you want. They don't understand what you understand. And that's okay. And that our job as fundraisers is to create the conditions for people to want what we want. And one of the reasons that I'm excited and have spent a year on GOODBIDS is because there are people who will not donate to your nonprofit unless they can have something that's fun and thrilling. And this is for them. It's not for the person who's going to send you money no matter what. They should just do that.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to say about, while I still have the microphone, is I've been working with Anne Marie now for a year and a half, and she's just such an extraordinary human being, and I learn from her every day. And I'm just so grateful to be on this podcast with her.
Well, we are grateful that you are both here. Anne Marie, I want to leave it to you to sort of close us out with your last thoughts as you were answering your doorbell. You had one other tool to leave us with, and so I'll pass it to you.
And I think this second tool can be in service of everything that Seth just said and everything that we've just talked about throughout the whole podcast, which is to create a not to-do list, to take the time to write out the things that you should not do, that are tempting to pull your bandwidth and your hours away. And the way that you can do it is to review the last 6 months to a year. What were the things I said yes to that I was grinding my teeth through it, or it took a lot of my staff hours and it didn't yield the results it should based on how much I should be focusing on my main priorities for the mission. And if you're a development manager, you might consider writing that not to-do list for your team. So, like if you're always invited to get a booth at a conference, like really evaluate, is that worth the time? And then that can really clear the plate and kind of help you to have more of an expansive view towards the stuff that you are focusing on.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, we are such fans of what you're doing. We're very excited to see GOODBIDS come out. We want to make sure everyone knows how to find GOODBIDS. Seth, you mentioned just a few moments ago that there was a way folks could kind of sign in to learn more. Can you remind us and all of our listeners how they can learn more about GOODBIDS? So
GOODBIDS is at goodbids.org. And if you go to joinus.goodbids.org, there's a simple Google form and you can raise your hand and we'll do our best to get back to you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all your innovation. Seth, we've been big fans of your work for a long time. We encourage all of our nonprofit leaders out there to follow your work, follow your blog, follow your readings, your writings, and Songs of Significance, the book on shelves right now about leadership and culture change. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for managing our technical challenges this morning as we were getting going. We appreciate you both, and we look forward to the launch of GOODBIDS.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Go make a ruckus.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced in partnership with Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV Department. The program is produced by April Clark and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson and Heidi Christensen. Video production by Chris Peterson, Whitney Gomes, and Nathan Bouquet. Video editing by Steve Osborne. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group, and support from Sophia Keller, John Lyles, and Andy Dowsett. At Elevate, we believe in bringing people together. Our online learning platform for fundraising events has webinars, workshops, downloadable tools, and more, designed to save you time and stress when planning your next event. We're getting nonprofit, development, and event planning professionals the tools and ideas they need to create events that inspire donors and raise more money. So join us at elevatenonprofit.com. The link is also in our show notes.